After the first skin, camp went quiet in the way a wound goes quiet when the bleeding slows and the real work starts. I took East watch because East was where the insult lived. Empire roads, cart dust, men who drilled boredom into a weapon. The hollow in my chest wanted that road the way a dry throat wants a river, but I had leashed it with names and laws and the feel of a repaired bridle under my palm. Leashes creak, they hold if you do not pretend they are silk. Night lay open and honest, stars hard as salt. The river behind camp talked over stones in its endless local language. Frogs answered. Somewhere a night bird made a sound like a hinge that needed grease. I walked the picket line with a quiet knife and quieter feet, counting stakes the way widows counted grain. Not for comfort, for truth. Batu had relieved me the night before and told me the east fold looked empty enough to sleep in. Men say empty when they are tired of fear. I did not sleep in folds. Folds hide 10 riders. Karen's eyes, even as faded habit, had taught me that much and then gone cold in my tendons, leaving only the lesson. The dark mare stood hip-shot inside the rope, head low, one ear still working. She trusted the camp more than she trusted me. Fair. I had taken her from panic and paid her in grain and slow hands. Partnership, not ownership. Ownership is a speech. Partnership is who runs when the dust comes. My shoulder scab pulled when I lifted the bow to check the string. Sanai's rap held. She had sniffed the wound like a hound and told me not to ride stupid. I had not promised. Promises about stupidity are how liars stay popular. I drew halfway, felt the rib complain, eased off. Ordinary limits. Ordinary was the home the skins rented. I meant to keep rent paid in both directions. Skins for craft, craft for the living names that still said Temur without kneeling. Orun snored near the main ash pile, fox fur strip crooked at his throat. Elder of leftovers, not a Khan, still a man who tried to make order out of cousins and widows and boys who ran messages. I did not wake him for shadows that were only grass tipping in wind. Elders need sleep more than they need proof you are vigilant. Vigilance is silent work. Naran had set the bone chime on the alarm rope before he curled near the mute girl's blanket nest. One clean clink if a rope jerked. Simple. Good. I touched the chime with a knuckle and left it ready. The boy had asked if I was cursed, and I had told him yes, and that useful curses get called luck until priests arrive. He still said my name like a rope thrown when my dreams twitched wrong. That tax of liking kept me more expensive to my own appetite. I approved the cost. Far east, nothing moved that had a brain. Heat ghosted off the day ground and made the star line waver. I smelled dust that might have been old and might have been imagination. Imagination is a scout that lies for free. I did not knock an arrow for it. I marked the smell and kept walking. The hatchet woman shifted in her bonds and watched me pass with open eyes. Sleep was a skill she refused on principle. Her braid had dust in it. Her wrists were raw and clean enough that infection had not yet made speeches. She smiled without kindness. Dog on a string, she whispered. String on a dog, I said, and kept moving. Banter with prisoners is a blade with 2 edges. I used the dull one. She had calculated through the raid and through the days after. Curiosity still cracked her face sometimes. I still did not pry it open. Time is a wedge. Wedges work slowly if you want the wood to split where you choose. I stopped at the east stake and set my back to a low hump of ground so my outline would not right itself against stars. Knife easy, bow flat, breath slow. The hollow asked for a stronger death the way cold asks for fire. I answered with the 3 laws until the words went dull. Only worthy deaths open the wardrobe. Do not let a skin finish its old feuds with my hands. Never tell the camp the truth in words they can repeat to an enemy. Softer forth, almost a prayer if prayers were tools. Leave room inside for Temur. Karan's pattern was memory now, not fire. The wash spearman's neatness was a ghost of a ghost. empty of skins, full of want. The braid of those two pulled until my jaw ached. I unclenched tooth by tooth and tasted only my own mouth. A deer shape moved on a far roll of land and became grass again. My hand found the knife without drama. Good. Drama wants witnesses. Witnesses start songs. Songs start hunters. I wanted throats left whole tonight and a camp that woke to thin smoke and grain math. Batu came before false dawn, rubbing sleep from his face, proud to be trusted with the specific fear of the East Fold. I told him watch the long shadow where 10 riders could hide. He straightened. Specific fears keep men sharper than general doom. I checked the dark mare once more on the way in. She licked my sleeve and went back to one hip sleep, treaty holding. I lay down in smoke smell and horse smell and the faint iron that never fully leaves a place where people have died. Sleep came as a truce, not a peace. In the last moment before dark took me, I saw a road of dust and a line of horse archers waiting with foolish confidence, bows curved like grins. I did not reach for them yet. I reached for the names, the laws, the quiet, the bite mark on my wrist that still meant calendar. First skin taken, raid broken, debt of want unpaid and leashed, horizon still a dare. Tomorrow the grass might remember new hooves. Tonight it remembered hours at rest, and I let rest be a kind of victory no skin could counterfeit. Morning made the leash visible. I woke with the hollow already sitting up inside my ribs, polite as a guest who intends to own the house by evening. It did not shout. Shouting is for new hungers. This one had learned my hours. It waited while I drank thin broth, while I checked the dark mare's legs, while I lied with my face about how well the shoulder moved. Sanai saw through the face anyway. She always did. She put bitter paste on the scab and said the body keeps receipts even when the mouth loses them. I told her the mouth was under new management. She flicked my ear hard enough to make the receipt real. Work filled the hours the way sand fills a boot. I repaired 2 picket stakes. I scraped mud from the small shield until the tall man's old paint became only a rumor of color. I helped the hip-smashed man hop to the latrine trench and pretended not to hear his pride crack. Pride cracks heal cleaner if no one writes songs about them. Naran wanted a story about the night of the raid that made me look like a storm. I gave him the stone again. Stones turn ankles. Men die. He scowled because children can smell edited truth the way horses smell storms. I did not upgrade the tale. Third law held. Words the camp can repeat become arrows in other mouths. Batu asked if we should ride the north grass for stray goats and leftover gear. Goats make good cover. Gear makes good temptation. I took him as far as the first rise and no farther. Tracks from the old raiders had blurred into weather. Weather is a kind of mercy. It erases maps you are not ready to follow. On the return, we found a hair snare tripped and empty. Cord chewed. Foxwork. I reset it and felt no borrow hunger toward the fox. First law sat in me like a taste. Weak deaths open nothing but stains. The hollow hated that sentence and still obeyed the fence around it. Fences are not love, they are carpentry. Orun called a council of the willing at midday, which meant anyone not asleep or dying. Barley from the southern cousin, water shares, when to move camp once the hip-smashed man could bear a litter, bound enemies and the risk of their kin. I argued again for walking the sword-hand man out blindfolded at night along the river and releasing him far from our exact bend. Cruel practical. Orun winced and agreed. The hatchet woman laughed when she heard and said I was learning. I did not ask what curriculum she thought I was on. Afternoon heat flattened the grass smell into dust and sweet rot at the reed edge. I drilled alone where the bank curved. Step, turn, cut the air, stop. Without a skin, the forms were mine and limited. Memory of skins wanted to flower into finishes I had not chosen. I held the stop until sweat ran and the flowering died. Control is a muscle. It fails if you only train it while screaming. Twice the hollow shoved images at me. a neat spear thrust into Batu's neck during a grain argument, Karen's sneer riding my mouth. I walked away from people both times and stacked dung cakes until the shove starved. Second law is not poetry. It is logistics for not murdering your own side with borrowed taste. The mute girl hummed near the pots. Progress without words. I sat a moment and hummed a scrap of nothing back. She did not smile, she did not flee. Treaties come in small coins. Near evening, a rider came from the southeast, not the cousin, a thin man on a thinner horse with news he wanted paid for in soup. Orun paid. The man talked with his hands. Horse archers east of the tribute bend, he said. Not empire, not the broken scale band. A jaw of riders who keep intervals and shoot in pairs. People name their captain Mare-Teeth. Arrows like a mare nipping flanks. Takes herds, takes heads, does not waste speeches. My hollow sat forward so hard I had to cough to hide it. Orun asked if the jaw rode our way. The thin man shrugged. Grass is wide. Hungry men make it narrow. He drank soup and eyed my small shield. I scraped mud with it until it looked like a tool again. Boring armor. After the thin man slept by the ash, I walked east watch early and tasted the wind. Nothing human. Only the idea of paired arrows standing in my mind like a new grammar. I recited laws. I recited names. I bit my wrist until blood proved ownership. Sanai found me at the picket and did not ask what I was hunting in the dark. She put a second water skin in my hand and said, "If dust comes, you do not play hero alone without telling the pots. Pots need warning to boil rags." I nodded. Practical love, the only kind that survives grass. Batu wanted to wear scale on his chest for the next visitor. I told him shiny draws magpies, and magpies draw men with bows. He sulked, then cleaned tack until the sulk burned off. Work cures ugly moods if you let it. I lay down after my turn with the knife under my palm, and the hollow leashed to dull words. Appetite on a leash is still appetite. It pants, it waits, it learns your sleep. In dream I rode a dun horse I had never owned, and loosed arrows in pairs that bit the world neat as teeth. I woke myself with the wrist bite and tasted only Temur. Good, I told the dark. Stay hungry, stay fenced. I recited the living names one more time until the want had to share the room. Sanai, Naran, Orun, Batu, mute girl, hip-smashed cursor, widows with grain math, dark mare, even the hatchet woman's ugly attention. Names are nails. Nails hold leashes better than hope. Outside, the bone chime did not move. Frogs kept their local politics. The river talked. Camp breathed. East remained a patient insult of road and rumor. I slept the rest as a man who knew quiet was a lid that never quite fit, and that somewhere east a captain with a biting name was oiling a bowstring while my leash creaked in the dark. We moved because stillness had become a kind of shout. Orun hated leaving the bend. Men hate leaving places where they survived, as if survival oils the dirt into a charm. Charms fail. The thin man's news sat in our ears like a burr. Horse archers with intervals. A captain named for teeth. Empire dust still a patient insult farther out. Soft meat with a famous stone story is a lamp in dry grass. I argued for a shift south along the river. Not far, far enough that old tracks would lead hungry eyes to cold ash. The hip-smashed man could bear a litter if we padded it with felt and lies about how light he was. He cursed and agreed because cursing is how some men sign treaties. Morning of the move smelled of wet rope and anxiety. Widows packed grain with mouths tight. Children were given small loads so their hands would not be free for panic. Naran took the mute girl's wrist without being told and looked at me once for the rope word. I gave him Temur like a knot. He nodded and became older by a year in the space of a blink. Batu wanted to burn the old latrine trench as a farewell insult. I told him smoke writes letters. We filled and left it boring. Boring is a strategy. I cut the hatchet woman's ankle bonds to a hobble she could walk and left the wrists tied in front so she could balance a light pack. If she ran into grass that did not love lone women with enemy braids. If she stayed useful, she stayed alive longer. She sneered and called it dog kindness. I called it inventory control. The sword-hand man, we walked blind later. Not yet. Moving a camp with two bound problems is already a circus. Circuses draw crowds. We left thin smoke dying behind us like a last polite lie. I rode rear on the dark mare with the bow up and the small shield slung. Rear is where you put the spendable and the stubborn. I was both and had stopped resenting the job. Resentment wastes draw strength. The line of us looked less like a clan than a wound dragging itself to cleaner cloth. Orun's fox fur strip bounced as he walked, ridiculous and necessary. Sanai counted heads without moving her lips. I counted with her from the back and matched numbers. Numbers held, for now. Midday we crossed a shallow braid of the river, where the mare's ears said footing was honest. I trusted her more than maps drawn by hope. On the far side, the grass changed shade, a nothing detail that still felt like a door closing on the old bend. Good. Doors should close on graves and cold ash. Batu rode up beside me with dust on his teeth. You think Mare-Teeth follows river smell, he asked. I think men follow stories and grain, I said. We are moving both. Keep intervals. Do not bunch. Bunching is how paired arrows do math. He glanced at my hands as if expecting them to glow with stolen craft. They did not. Empty of skins, full of want. I showed him ordinary fingers and he looked weirdly comforted. Afternoon brought a scatter of old dung and a broken pot someone else had left in another year. Proof the grass was a road whether we consented or not. I dismounted and read tracks around the pot. Hare, fox, one shod hoofprint older than weather liked, not fresh. I did not invent fear from fossils. I marked and moved. Near evening we found the new bend Orun had half remembered from a wet spring long ago. Reed thicker. Opposite rise less bare, not hidden, better lied. We set pickets with hands that shook from work more than terror, which is the right kind of shake. Naran set the bone chime. Children learned the new reed paths by being walked through them twice. Sanai built a small fire that made little smoke and much heat for paste and water. I took first wide circle on the mare while light still had teeth. South empty, west empty, north held our own dragged trail like a confession. East held a smudge that might become dust if a man was hungry enough to promote it. I promoted nothing yet. I rode back and told Orun the ground was acceptable and the east deserved watches stacked like bricks. He agreed without fox-fur theatre. Exhaustion strips performance. I preferred him this way. Night settled. Frogs here spoke a slightly different dialect. The river's voice had more gravel. I walked the pickets and found the hatchet woman seated with her hobble neat and her eyes brighter than I liked. New dirt, same dog, she said. Same teeth learning, I said. She tilted her head. Kadan Mare-Teeth likes dark mares and thin camps that think reeds are walls. If he smells your stone story, he will come to see if luck has a face. Luck is a fishhook. He collects faces, Kadan, the personal name under the biting title. Names are maps. I filed it without thanks. I checked her knots and left water. Then I stood east watch with the hollow leaning so hard toward the idea of a horse archer captain that my breath went shallow. I bit my wrist, mine. I recited living names until the lean became a sit. Batu relieved me late. He said the move made him feel like prey that had chosen a new burrow. I said choosing is the only dignity prey gets before it grows teeth. He almost smiled, then remembered smiles start rumors and kept his mouth straight. Learning. I lay in new smoke smell and old iron memory. Sleep came in pieces. In one piece I saw paired arrows standing in dirt like a grin. In another I heard Naran say Temur as if testing rope. Both true enough to wake me once and let me sleep again. Camp on the move had become camp at rest in a cleaner lie. The lid of quiet settled. It still did not fit. Somewhere east, if the thin man and the hatchet woman were not only selling fear, a jaw of riders was already tasting air for river smell and story blood. I kept my face plain in the dark and my future outrageous, and the grass began learning our new hooves before it forgot the old. Dust showed on the second morning at the new bend, and it had a different walk than carts. I saw it first from Eastwatch, a scratched line on the far rise that did not wander like goats, and did not crawl like traders who fear their own axle grease. This dust kept intervals. Even as a smudge, it suggested teeth in a jaw. I did not shout. Shouts stampede thin camps. I found Orun near the grain and spoke weather-soft. Dust east, possible riders, horse seats if the spacing holds. He went the color of old tallow and then set his jaw like a man bolting a door with a stick. He sent Batu to walk pickets bored. Boredom is a mask if your face can hold it. Sarnai packed rags and needle without being asked. Naran's hands went to the bone chime rope. I put him on reed duty with the small ones if dust became men. He wanted the line. I wanted him alive at 30. Alive won by a hair. I strung the bow, rib complained, shoulder scab pulled. Ordinary limits welcomed like honest debts. The dark mare caught my mood and stopped hip-shot resting, both ears knife-sharp toward the rise. The hatchet woman laughed under her breath when she saw our quiet busy. Mare-Teeth, she said, or someone taught by the same hungry school. If the forward rider sits easy, run your mouth less and your legs more. I watched until the smudge broke into shapes, riders, not a storm, a knot, 12, 14 if spares counted, bows cased and ready, one half a length forward, posture easy, as if the grass itself had agreed to his schedule. Even at distance, he looked like a problem that had solved other problems before. Orun wanted to hide deeper in reeds. Hiding is a habit that feeds graves if you make it your only god. I did not mock him. I had been rear meat long enough to respect the urge. I still argued against full flight on open grass in front of horse archers. Flight becomes a parade. Parades become pincushions. How? Asked a widow with burn scars from a different year. Make them spend arrows on a moving problem that is not the children, I said. Make ground argue, soft bank, scrub, reed fingers, and if a captain leads from the easy seat, make him prove the nickname costs him. Batu understood. Bait, he said. Bait, I agreed. Me on the dark mare, camp ready to bite ankles if any peel toward smoke. No horns. Horns call everyone, including the ones you do not want. Lungs are quieter and last longer. Orun hated it with his whole fox fur throat. He also had no better knife. Thin authority yields to the person willing to be meat on purpose. He yielded. Hate later. Live now. I checked knots on the bound, freed the hatchet woman's ankles to a run hobble, and left a long knife in dust where bound wrists would take time to reach. Time is a test. If we lived, I would argue with myself about mercy. If we died, she could choose effort over theater. Not clean. Clean choices are for walls. She flexed her feet. Kadan will like your mare, she said. He collects dark ones. He can like her from the ground, I said. I mounted with bow up, small shield slung, short blade at ribs. No Karan fire, only Temur and a hollow screaming for a door. Doors open on worthy deaths. The easy-seat rider looked like a door with legs. I rode a slow loop that looked like checking snares, then showed myself on a low rise, not high enough to be a fool, high enough to be counted. I turned as if startled and took a slant that offered chase without gifting my spine in a straight line. Behind me, after heartbeats longer than honesty, dust lifted, not the whole jaw at once, a split, 3 peeling to test the lone rider, the rest holding to watch smoke and count soft meat. Dust with teeth. The first arrow arrived as a fact, not a warning. It kissed dirt a mare's length left and stood quivering like a small, cruel plant, neat. A second followed into the space where my ribs would have been if the dark mare had not already answered my knee. Paired bite. Name confirmed in the body before the mouth. I rode the slant harder and let the mare choose micropaths through tussock and old holes while I made myself small over her neck. Wind tore eyes, cracked rib lit with each stride. Pain was a calendar. I stayed on today's date. Two pressed eager, the third held longer, rein, bow up, patient as a man fishing with barbs. Captain's fish, boys thrash. That patience named him more dangerous than speed. I cut towards soft ground where reeds began without becoming full river. Hooves hate suck. Arrows hate moving stems that slap strings. The mare hit the edge and surged. One pursuer hesitated, one did not, and stumbled his next shot wide. Wide is not safe, wide is only not dead yet. I shot ordinary and honest and forced the stumble to cover with his body instead of his ambition. The patient one loosed again, tighter, teaching humility and fear in the same breath. The mare swerved. I stayed by shin grip and a coal of old horse sense that steadied 3 strides and left. Coal, not mine to claim as fire. Camp smoke stayed a thin coin when I glanced. Good. I was not leading the whole jaw onto barley, only teeth. Teeth break if you jam them on bone. I doubled through a shallow wash of ankle-turning stones. One pursuer clipped rock. Horse screamed short. Man kept seat. Skilled. Worthy edges showed before names were spoken close. The patient rider called a short code. Spacing reset like a jaw. Beautiful in the blasphemous way killing patterns can be. I hated the beauty and used the hate as fuel. Dust with teeth had tasted me. I checked the mare's mouth foam with 2 fingers as we ran, and found it still white enough to mean road remained. Road is a mercy you measure in animal spit. I wiped my hand on my thigh and took the bow up again, counting shafts by touch without looking down. Looking down is how the next pair finds your neck. 11 left that I trusted. Trust is a shrinking country. I put heels in and let the grass begin its long argument with arrows, already knowing the argument would not end on speed alone. They did not all chase. That was the professionalism that made my stomach cold. While 3 tested me on the slant, the main knot held near range of our river smell, counting smoke and soft shapes. I could not see them clean through scrub and distance, but dust does not lie about mass. Mass waited. Teeth do not all bite the tongue at once. Some hold the jaw. I broke the eager pair's rhythm through willow whip and wet footing until one spilled in a tangle of curses and mud. The hurt bow-arm man I had slammed earlier tried a short blade pass and ate an ordinary arrow high in the chest for his faith in stubbornness. He folded and kept seat 3 strides, then left the song. That left the patient captain and the wider world. He did not close like a story hero. He rode a dun with neat feet and watched me the way a smith watches metal color. When I angled toward deeper reeds, he cut the exit with a pair of shafts that stood in mud like markers on a map. When I feinted open grass, he declined the gift and forced me toward ground he had already read. Reading ground is a kind of ownership. He owned more pages than I did. Close enough now to see details, leather brow guard, scar at the mouth corner that turned every neutral look into half a smile. At his bow case hung a pale string of teeth, yellow-white, small and clean. Not human, Mare-Teeth, banner without cloth, honest in its way. Cloth lies about glory, teeth only promise biting. Kadan Mare-Teeth, name and title braided. He raised one hand, not to me, to riders I could not fully see. Dust shifted, the jaw adjusted. Somewhere behind my risk line, camp would be turning quiet into ready. Children into thick reeds, Sanai boiling water she hoped not to need. Orun trying to make leftovers stand like a wall without becoming one. Batu's dust showed sudden on a rough gelding, waving as if calling me home, actually calling eyes, brave, stupid, useful. Kadan's gaze flicked a fraction and returned. He did not take the full hook. Professionals taste iron on the bait. Still, the flick brought me a breath into reed cover where horses slow or break legs. I slid from the saddle on a reed island, knife out, lungs raw, mare blowing beside me with eyes rimmed white. I palm-soothed her neck and promised living first. Treaties with animals are simpler than treaties with captains who hang teeth on bow cases. Kadan circled the reed finger like patient fire looking for dry edges. He called in a tongue close to ours, clear as a struck pot. Thin camp, soft grain. We take horses, we take bronze. We leave living if living lies down. Resist and we leave teeth in your dirt. A whoop answered from his jaw. Whooping is for men who still think fear is a spice. I answered from cover without showing enough body for neat math. Horses tied are few. Bronze is pots. Grain is widows counting. You will spend more blood than the take is worth. Ride east. Carts have softer guards. Silence, then a short laugh that was almost respectful. You are the stone dog, he said. Riverbend story. Lucky ankle rock. Tall man down. I wanted to see if luck has a face. Rumor had grown legs. Rumor reaches horse archers faster than barley. My skin went cold under sweat. Attention is a second enemy. Here it was, riding a dun, naming me before I had chosen a public name. I shrugged the sound into my voice. Stones turn ankles, men die. Go be weather somewhere else. He clicked tongue, the dun shifted. Arrows knocked somewhere in the jaw with a soft communal sound like rain deciding. Not loosed, display of patience. Patience is terror when the other side can afford it. I mounted in the reeds carefully, water to the mare's belly, and broke out on a line that forced him to choose between shooting and repositioning. He repositioned, of course he did. Men who live by pairs of arrows do not spend them on pretty maybe. We began a second grammar of chase, wider now, the running fight proper, not a duel in a circle, a conversation written in hoof scars across a page of grass too large for pride. His riders peeled in twos, shooting and turning, old step math that turns standing courage into cushions for points. I refused to stand. Standing was Oren's temptation and the children's death. I stayed the moving problem, drawing the neatest teeth after me, away from reed paths where small bodies hid. An arrow cut my sleeve and wrote a hot line along the shoulder scab. Another killed a tussock where my knee had been. The dark mare began to labor. Labor is a clock. Clocks run out. I needed ground that hated them more than it hated me, or a death worthy enough to open the wardrobe before the clock hit bone. Kadan seemed to know. He did not rush the finish. He herded. Herding is how wolves teach deer which valley is a mouth. Behind my sternum, the hollow stopped pacing and set its feet. Worthy, it said without words. I hated agreeing, and agreed anyway. Laws flickered under arrows. Room for Temur was getting expensive. An arrow from the jaw found Batu's gelding and made the animal scream. Batu spilled, rolled, ran for scrub on foot with a mallet still in hand. I spoiled the shooter's next breaths with a shaft to the bow arm. Not enough, never enough when camp is soft under a lid of threat. I spat blood from a bitten cheek and whispered Temur into the wind. The hollow answered with a lean so hard it hurt. The dark mare's labor clock ticked louder. Foam on the rein, whistle starting in the breath. Kadan lifted his bow in a small salute that was also a promise. The tooth string clicked dry music. He was ready to harvest. I was ready to stop being Weather's student and become a door thief. Banner of teeth, captain on a dun. Camp behind smoke and prayerless work. The running fight had found its true name, and the name wore Mare-Teeth that clicked once when he turned. Small dry music under the larger music of hooves. The first true exchange was not a duel. It was weather with intentions. Kadan's 3 herders tried to put me in a pocket against the river, while his main crescent kept camp under a lid of threat. Classic. Take the loud dog away. Chew the house at leisure. I refused the pocket by riding into ground that looked worse than it was, a strip of old flood silt that took hooves mid-pastern and made pretty gallop math into stumbling curses. My mare hated it and forgave me because I hated it with her. Partnership is shared complaint under pressure. An arrow came from my left, low, meant for the mare's stifle. I turned her haunch with rein and heel and felt the shaft tick leather instead of tendon. Close. Close is a teacher that does not care if you graduate. I shot back at the left herder and missed his body, hit his horse's breastband, made the animal rear and buy me 2 breaths. Breaths are coin. I spent them angling toward a reed finger that stuck out into grass like a green knife. Behind me, camp noise rose, shouts, a scream cut short, a felt wall becoming a drum under arrows. I did not look. Looking is how herders put the next shaft in your neck. Faith in Sanai and Orun and ugly drills had to be enough. I swallowed it and rode. Kadan did not waste himself on silt. He paralleled me on firmer ground, dun horse floating, and loosed at the top of each stride as if the bow were part of his pulse. One shaft burned a line across my already scabbed shoulder and woke the whole history of that wound in white fire. My fingers went numb and then came back swearing. I nearly dropped the bow. Nearly is a country I visit too often. I cursed him by no name and then by his name, because names aim better. Kadan. The mouth scar turned toward the sound as if praised. He called, friendly as poison. Stone dog runs, good. Running teaches, teaching or hunting, same motion in his seat. One herder got too brave and closed to spear range, thinking bowmen panic when steel comes near. Some do. I had been a knife before I was anything else. I let him commit, slid inside the point, and cut his spear hand the way you cut rope that has become enemy. He howled. His horse carried him out of the pocket wrong way, spoiling the herd line. Kadan's head ticked once. Annoyance. Professional annoyance is quieter than rage and more lethal later. I broke free of silt onto knotted grass and kicked for speed. The mare gave it, breath loud. An arrow passed under my thigh and stood ahead like a death signpost. I yanked her aside and felt my cracked rib light up. Pain stacked. Still better than stacked graves. From camp a horn sounded once and died. Sound cracked the morning wider. 2 mare-teeth peeled toward that noise. Bad for camp, good for fewer expert eyes on my spine. I used the good. I cut toward Kadan's parallel line as if I had lost my mind, which is sometimes the only way to change a professional's script. He loosed, I dropped. Shaft kissed shield rim. I came up shooting, not at him, but at his dun's face. Dirty, effective. The dun shied hard. Kadan's perfect release broke into a grab for mane and rein. For 3 strides, he was only a man on a startled horse, not weather. I did not reach him. 3 strides is not a gift large enough for greed. I peeled for the reed finger and heard him laugh, actual laugh, delighted. Yes, he shouted, again. His delight sickened me because part of the hollow delighted back. Pattern seeking pattern. Wardrobe doors recognizing hinges. I bit my cheek until blood salted my tongue and remembered Naran's rope word. Temur, still here, still paying tax. In the reeds, I forced the mare into a narrow, wet path that would kill speed for anyone following blind. She blew mud and hate. I knocked, turned, waited. Waiting in green dark with heart trying to kick its way out of the mouth is a special prayer. No sky answer, only the sound of hooves choosing whether to be stupid. A herder was stupid. He plunged in after me. Bow useless in tight stems. I put an arrow into the shadow of his chest from 10 paces and saw him fold into water with a splash that scared frogs into silence. The hollow leaned for more finish. I left him and moved, because finishes that linger become graves for the finisher when friends arrive. Kadan did not plunge. Of course not. He rode the reed edge and stitched arrows into the green where he guessed my body. 2 guesses came close enough to cut stems onto my hair. 1 guess would have killed me if I had not already slid from the saddle into mud with the mare's body as wall. She shuddered as a shaft slapped her saddle blanket and hung. I pulled it free before it worked into her, hands shaking, still mine. I remounted messy and burst from the far side of the finger into open grass again, now north of his line. For a moment the map flipped, camp to my left rear, Kadan turning, 2 herders regrouping, the main crescent still a threat, glitter near the felts. First arrows had not decided the day. They had only signed the contract in blood and fletching. My quiver count was already a problem. Thin camps do not own forests of shafts. Each shot now needed a job, not a hope. Kadan lifted his bow in salute and called his near riders into a running corridor meant to drive me into river deeps or back under the shooting lid over camp. Drive math. I spat mud and blood and chose a third line, straight at the corridor's weaker edge where the younger scout rode, the one I had spared. Spared men remember, debt or humiliation. His face said humiliation. He raised his bow fast and clean. So did I. 2 strings spoke. His shaft ripped my sleeve and skin along the outer arm. Mine took him in the shoulder and spun him half out of the seat. Alive, dangerous later. Out of the corridor math now. I blew through the gap and felt Kadan's next arrow tear a groove in the small shield hard enough that my whole arm went dead tingling. First arrow's phase ending. Day still unpaid. I rode for open room and the kind of fight that ends with one captain in the dirt, because silk tricks would not hold forever against men who shot like biting. Running ground is a lie people tell about freedom. Real running ground is a board with moving knives, and every stride is a bet you place with lungs and hoof, and the thin idea that you still choose. I took the mare north along a long, shallow swale where old herds had worn the grass short. Short grass means speed and means nowhere to hide from shafts. Trade again. I needed speed more than shade because Kadan's corridor was collapsing into pursuit, and pursuit with horse archers is a conversation you only win by breaking the speaker's mouth. 3 rode on me hard, Kadan and 2 veterans with tooth strings clicking on bow cases like little castanets of bone. The rest stayed near camp, loosing occasional long shots to keep heads down and courage expensive. I hated the split and respected it. Leave enough bite on the house, send enough jaw after the dog. My arm bled in a sheet under the ripped sleeve, not spurting, still rude. I clamped the small shield edge against it until pain made a seal of swelling. Sanai would murder me if I lived. Motivation. I changed leads, cut across a strip of higher ground, and forced the pursuers to choose footing. One veteran took it wrong. His horse stumbled a half-beat. I threw a shaft into that half-beat and saw it punch his thigh and pin leather to meat. He peeled off cursing, not dead, out of the immediate grammar. 2 left. Kadan shouted something to the remaining veteran that was pure command, no poetry. The veteran swung wide to my right to make a moving wall. Kadan stayed left and slightly behind my tail, the killing seat, where most men cannot shoot well without twisting their own story into a fall. Most men. He shot from there anyway and nearly took my kidney. The mare saved me by crow-hopping at a hole I had not seen. Borrowed luck from animal spite. I would feed her forever if forever existed. We ran. Sweat frothed the mare's dark neck. My world narrowed to rain, string, breath, the dun's nose appearing and vanishing in edge vision. The hollow wanted me to turn and duel like a song. Songs die on running ground. I kept the long line and looked for a shape in land that could be an ally. There, a cut bank where spring water had bitten a low cliff into the plain, half the height of a man, jagged, ugly, perfect for breaking clean pursuit angles. I drove for it as if it owed me money. Kadan saw it too. Of course he did. His voice cracked once, sharp, ordering the veteran to swing ahead and deny me the bank. The veteran kicked harder. Good horse. Bad mission if I arrived first. I arrived first by a margin measured in fear. The mare dropped into the cut with a jar that smashed my rib complaint into a scream I swallowed. I turned her hard along the inner wall, dust choking, and came up a goat path I had only guessed existed because water always leaves secrets. Guess held. We popped onto the bank top as the veteran committed to the bottom track. I shot down into him, not pretty. Gravity helped. The shaft took him at the base of the neck where armor becomes wishes. He went off sideways and his horse fled back along the cut with empty saddle and tooth-string banner clacking like laughter with no mouth. Kadan did not enter the cut. He stopped out of easy range, breathing his dun down, eyes bright, mouth scar smile thin as a cut. "One," he called up to me. "You have won. He meant kills. He was counting like a merchant of pain. I did not answer with numbers. Numbers invite contests. I checked my quiver by touch. Few, too few. The bow in my hand suddenly felt like a question I might fail. Below Camp Ward, smoke lifted thicker than our small fires should make. Not full burn yet, something tipped and catching. Time bled out of the day from 2 wounds at once. Kadan followed my glance and nodded as if we shared a lesson. Your house pays while we talk, stone dog. Then stop talking and leave, I said. He shook his head. I came for horses and bronze. Now I stay for you. Luck should be harvested before it becomes weather. Harvest. The word made the hollow slam against the leash so hard I saw spots. Worthy, captain, horse archer pattern sitting on a dun like a second life waiting to be stolen. Laws flickered, camp names flickered harder. Sarnai, Noran, Mute Girl, Orun, the hip-smashed counter of rhythms. I could run farther and die tired while camp became a story told by teeth. I could charge him now with almost empty quiver and die classic. Or I could make the running ground into a closed room. I chose closed room. I rode along the bank top toward a place where the cut shallowed and the grass beyond folded into a bowl used by herds in hard wind. Bowl means sight lines break. Break means 2 men can arrive at a distance where bows matter less and seats and knives finish arguments. Kadan's strength was the long bite. I needed to make him accept a short one. He tracked me, not rushing. Herding with presence, professional. The dun moved like water around stones. Twice he loosed long, testing. Twice I made myself small and let shafts spend themselves in dirt. My mare's breath had a whistle now that scared me more than his smile. Animals tell truth about remaining road. In the bowl mouth, I kicked the last hard sprint out of her and felt her give it like a gift she would bill me for later. Kadan matched, then overmatched, angling to cut me off from the far lip. His bow came up for a sure shot at my spine. I threw the small shield backward without looking, a stupid motion that Karan's walking mind would have sneered at, and that panic made brilliant. The shield spun, caught his dun across the face or the bit, I could not see which, and the sure shot became a tangle. Wood cracked. A horse screamed insult. Kadan cursed first time all morning, human and sharp. I turned into him while the tangle lasted. Running ground ended. Now there was only the distance between 2 captains and whatever the next 3 breaths would buy the living. Close. Kadan was smaller than rumor and larger than comfort. Rumor makes men into weather systems. Breath makes them into bodies that bleed and misjudge and love their own craft too much. He recovered the dun with hands like iron thread, eyes already back on me, mouth scar flexed into something almost respectful. The broken shield lay in grass between us, boss dented, my arm feeling naked without its weight. His bowstring still hummed from the spoiled shot, 1 arrow left on his string fingers, more in the case at his knee. Teeth string clicking as the dun stamped. My mare shuddered under me, whistle breath, sides painted with foam and other people's plans. I had 3 shafts left that I trusted, and one that looked warped enough to embarrass me. Knife at my ribs, rib itself a bright coal, shoulder wet, arm groove sticky, ordinary inventory of a man not yet dead. Around the bowl the world narrowed. Distant camp noise became a muffled drum. Wind turned local. 2 men, 2 horses, a morning that had decided to put its whole hand on 1 knot. Kadan spoke almost gently. You move like someone wearing better men. The sentence landed too near truth. I showed him teeth and no answer. Answers are straps. Straps get led. He nodded as if my silence confirmed a bet. Tall man of the river bend, maybe more. Good. I hate empty luck. Empty luck cannot teach my riders when I bring them your head. Bring, I said. Present tense is cheaper than future. He laughed, and the laugh finished in a draw so fast I barely saw the elbow drop. I kicked the mare sideways and loosed one of my 3. His arrow cut my reins a finger from my thumb. Mine sliced his brow guard and opened a line of blood over his eye. Red ran into the scar smile and made it ceremonial. He did not wipe. Wiping is a luxury. He shot again, half blind on that side, still dangerous. The shaft took my mare high in the neck muscle, not the pipe, a wound that makes animals mad. She reared, sky tilted. I clamped with legs that remembered every ugly fall and stayed stuck to her like a bad conscience. Kadan closed during the rear, bow now flipped to striker's club, dun shoulder slamming. Impact rang my cracked rib like a bell under meat. Breath left, white sheet over the world. I stabbed blindly with the bow stave and felt contact with his arm. He grunted. Our horses bit at each other, Mare-Teeth answering his banner's promise in living form. For a moment, the fight was only animals, and we were luggage. Luggage that kills. I dropped the bow on purpose, left hand finding knife, right hand finding his belt as the horses wheeled, close as lovers who hate. His free hand found my hair and yanked my throat line open for a finish. Breath still gone, vision spotted. The hollow roared to be fed or to feed. I could not tell. I did not go for his throat. Throat is where men like him expect hungry dogs. I went lower, ugly, under the bow case strap, into the soft, just above the hip where armor becomes a pinion. Knife sank. Heat washed my hand. Kadan's yank faltered. His forehead smashed my nose anyway, out of pure professional spite. Cartilage crunched. Blood filled my mouth from inside. We fell apart because the horses finally refused the clinch and split. I nearly went down between them. Stirrup saved me. His dun carried him half a circle with him folded over the neck, hand pressed to the hip wound, bow still somehow in the other fist, like a flag he would not drop. He looked at his blood as if it had broken a rule. Then he smiled wider, red and real. There, he said, not stone, meat. He tried to lift the bow. The hip failed him. Seat lost its perfect grammar. The dun, confused by a master suddenly heavy and wrong, danced in place. I had no bow in hand. Mine lay in grass 3 strides away, a distance that might as well have been empire. Knife wet, mare screaming through her neck wound in pure offended life. I drove her at him before he could reclaim the shape of a captain. He met me with the bow stave and cracked it across my shieldless forearm. Bone-deep hurt. Fingers opened, knife tumbled, empty hands. His hand found a short blade from his boot with the smoothness of practice under death. We collided again, this time more fall than charge, and hit grass in a tangle of reins and teeth strings and knees. On the ground, horse archer gods become men who remember wrestling as boys. He was stronger in the shoulders. I was meaner in the mud. We rolled once. His boot knife traced fire along my ribs over the old crack and tried to invent a new one. I got my forearm under his chin and forced his head back until the mouth scar filled with sky. He gouged for my eyes. I turned my face and bit his hand like the mare I rode. Skin broke. He cursed a god I did not know. Campward, someone screamed a name that might have been a child's. The sound put a nail through both of us. His eyes flicked, mine did not. Mercy of monomania, or crime of it. I used the flick and drove my forehead into his bleeding brow. Impact emptied both our skulls for a blink. His knife hand loosened. I found the knife not by sight, but by the heat of my own blood on it, and turned the point. Laws flashed. Worthy, yes, old feuds, unknown, room for Temur, thin. I pushed the blade into the place beside the first wound where life keeps its urgent ropes and felt them part. Kadan jerked, breath became a wet argument. His hand clamped my wrist with shocking force, not to stop the blade, already too late, but to make me look at him. Not luck, he forced out. Name, Temur, I said, because lying to a dying captain felt like a smallness I refused. Temur of a thin camp, not weather, not stone, Temur. He almost nodded. The mouth scar tried to smile and failed into something like peace that had nothing gentle in it. Take the seat, he whispered, or I imagined he whispered, because men like me need dying enemies to bless the theft. Then the strength went out of his fingers, and Captain Kadan of the Mare-Teeth became weight and heat, and a door slamming open in my blood. The sky did not open. The grass did not bow. Something in my blood opened instead, and this time it smelled of gallop, wind, and bowstring oil, and the cold joy of shooting while the world moves. Kadan's seat poured into me. Not his childhood, not the first women who made him stupid, not the name of the horse he loved before the dun. The way weight lives in the pockets of the knees, the way hips read a mount's next thought half a stride early, the way a bow arm stays soft until the last finger's width and then becomes iron without telling the hand to panic, the way fear in a running fight looks like a knot you cut by changing angle, never by freezing. I gasped on my knees in his blood and mine, and felt the second skin settle like a heated blanket full of knives. Temur, I said aloud, spit red. The name held. The skin did not leave. It cocked its head, waiting, hungry to finish a fight its former owner had been mid-winning. Good, I told it. Work. Do not drive. I found my knife, found my bow, found the mare standing 3 steps away with a shaft in her neck muscle and eyes ringed white. Kadan in my hands knew how to touch her. Pressure here, voice low, calm as weather. She shuddered and let me break the shaft close, leave the head for later, because digging now would empty her faster than riding would. Ugly medicine, running medicine. She took my weight when I mounted as if the skin on my back were a language she respected more than my ordinary kindness. That hurt in a place laws do not cover. I thanked her anyway with a palm and turned toward camp. The bowl lip, the swale, the long, short grass run, all of it rewritten. Before, land had been obstacles and bets. Now it was a board I could feel through the mare's bones. Lines of faster turf, soft traps, the exact place a pursuer would expect me to look back. I did not look back at Kadan's body. Looking back is how skins finish grief with your eyes. I looked forward to the glitter of remaining mare teeth near our felts and felt his professional inventory start itself. Count bows, count spare mounts, find the one trying to be capped in by volume, cut the volume, break the crescent's confidence. Trauma bleed came as a sneer toward my own people for living soft enough to be raided. I felt it rise like bile. I nailed it down with Sarnai's cough, Naran's rope word, Orun's stupid fox fur, the mute girl's dragonfly treaty. Nails. Room for Temur. The sneer starved without dying. Good enough. An arrow came from nowhere and should have killed an ordinary seat. The second skin turned my waist and the mare answered before I finished wanting, and the shaft went through space where my liver had been planning to live. I laughed once, short, and bit it off because the laugh had Kadan's delight under it. 2 mare teeth saw me coming alone and woofed, thinking their captain had finished the stone dog and sent a rider back in triumph, or thinking I was easy without him. Their whoops died when they saw my face and the blood and the empty space behind me where Kadan should have been. I shot on the gallop. The release was not mine by birth. Finger escape clean, shoulder a hinge, breath out without drama. The first shaft took the left rider in the chest as if the distance had been measured by a clerk. He folded and taught his horse panic. The second rider loosed wild and tried to peel. I already knew the peel. Kadan had drilled peels into this skin until they were boredom. I cut the angle, closed, and put the knife into his thigh as I passed, not staying to admire. Admiration is stationary. Stationary is dead. Camp opened ahead in ugly pieces. One felt smoldered. A widow swung a cooking iron at a man on foot and missed and lived because Batu hit the man from the side with a peg mallet. Orun stood with a spear and a tremor and still stood. Naran was not in sight, which either meant scatter rule or grave. I could not afford the grave thought. I made it small and put it behind the work. A Mare-Teeth veteran near the reed edge tried to rally with shouts of Kadan's name. Names can be horns. I wrote him down and answered the name with the fact of the skin, which is a cruel answer and a true one. He saw my seat and went pale under dirt. People who live by craft recognize craft wearing the wrong face. His bow came up shaking. Shake ruins aim. I did not ruin him clean. I smashed his bow with mine, broke his nose with the stave, and left him for camp hands if camp hands had mercy or rope. The crescent was already ragged, captain gone, 2 down on my return, 1 screaming under Batu's mallet. Horse archers without a spine become knives in a sack, dangerous and directionless. A woman among them, braid thick, tried to make a new spine by loosing controlled pairs toward our reed path. Competent, worthy later maybe, not now. I drove at her line and felt Kadan's mind offer a finishing pattern that would have killed 2 of ours if they stepped into it as shields. I refused the pattern's full hunger and took only the angle, forcing her to wheel wide toward open grass. She went smart, calling the remaining riders with a sharp whistle, not whoops. Whistle means brain. They gathered on the move, still 6 or 7 able, and looked at me for the law of the day. I raised Kadan's tooth-string bow case, which my hand had taken without asking my pride, and held it high enough for Sun to find the pale grins. "Your captain is dirt," I said, and my voice carried with a stranger's certainty. "Take soft cart roads, leave thin camps, or stay and feed the grass." A long breath, bows still up, day balanced on finger pads. Then the braid woman spat, turned her horse, and led the bite away east-southeast, not broken into helpless flight, broken into retreat with teeth still attached. Dangerous later, alive now, our living stayed living. I did not chase. Chase was Kadan's old feud with anyone who ran. My camp was smoking. My mare was bleeding. My nose was a mashed fruit. The second skin wanted the braid woman's pattern the way drunks want another cup. I got down from the mare before the want could use my heels, and pressed my face into her hot neck until I smelled only horse and smoke and my own iron. "Temur," I said into hair. "Temur, Temur." The skin stayed, working, leashed. Second door open. Raid not a raid anymore. Running fight paid in a captain's seat. Behind me, Orun began shouting counts of the living, and I turned to face whatever numbers would do to my name. The skin did not sleep when the boughs left. It paced. I felt it in the way my eyes measured every cousin's seat as they calmed horses. Too narrow, too stiff, heels wrong. Kadan's judgments rose like bile dressed as wisdom. I swallowed them and went to work with hands that wanted to correct the world at full speed and instead pulled a shaft head from my mare's neck muscle with slow care while Sarnai cursed both of us. "Hold her," Sarnai ordered. I held. The mare trembled and tried to make me a liar. Kadan in the fingers knew a twitch point that settled her without cruelty. I used it and hated how clean it felt. Sarnai got the head out, packed the wound, stitched with a face like storm. When she finished, she flicked my ear hard enough to ring. I said, 3 days, no stupid, she said. You heard weather and married it. Weather married me back, I said, and she looked at my eyes too long, hunting stranger. I let her hunt. Hiding too hard is also a tell. She grunted, wiped blood from my smashed nose with a rag that smelled of boiled herbs, and told me if I fainted she would tell the camp I cried for mother. Fair tax. Naran came from the reeds with the mute girl and 2 widows, all mud to the thighs, all breathing. The scatter rule had held. My knees went soft with a relief that had nothing to do with skins and everything to do with the tax of liking. He stopped 2 paces from me and said my name like a rope thrown. Temur. I answered. He saw the tooth-string case still in my fist and did not reach for it. Smart boy. Some trophies bite late. Batu counted dead mare teeth on our ground. 4, plus the ones I had left on the run. Are dead. 1 cousin with an arrow through the cheek into the brain. Quick at least. 1 widow who had taken a shaft meant for a child and would get stones and a debt I could not pay clean. Wounded, several, including Orun's trembling spear arm, now cut along the meat, and my entire history of bones. Orun found me sitting because standing made the second skin want a horse under me again. He looked at the tooth banner, at my face, at the dark mare living, at the smolder being beaten into black wet ash. You ran them, he said. Not Luck Rock, you ran them. Screen and River and their captain dying stupid, I offered. Stone Story's cousin. He shook his head. Old men know when a young man feeds them soft meat. I will chew it in public. In private, I will remember your seat after you came back. That was not a dog. That was a captain's ghost or a sky joke. Either way, this camp is not empty of weather anymore. Clan notices start inside the mouth of your own elder before they travel. I heard the hinge creak. I asked for work instead of theology. We set watches, we watered horses, we dragged mare-teeth bodies away from drinking edges, and took what would keep us alive: arrows, leather, a better bow, grain cakes from a dead man's pouch, the dun horse if we could catch him. The dun stood out on the grass near the bowl line, loyal to a corpse. I walked out alone, under eyes, and felt the skin settle into my stride until walking seemed a waste of good hips. At the body I crouched. Kadan looked smaller again. Blood dull, mouth scar quiet. I did not apologize. Apologies to the dead are how skins climb into your throat. I took the remaining tooth string from his bow case and left him one pale tooth on his chest, because even thieves can pay a coin. Superstition, or manners, or a nail against becoming only hunger. The dun let me approach with Kadan's hands on the rein of the world. I hated that and used it. Led him back. Camp watched. Whispers started like small fires in dry dung. Sarnai blocked me at the rope. "Your eyes are wrong," she said softly. "I am tired," I said. "Tired men do not sit a horse like that when they think no one looks," she said. I looked. I could have scared her off with a snarl. The skin offered one. I refused and told her the only truth that would not become a song. Sometimes when men almost die, they borrow the way the man who nearly killed them stood. It passes. If it does not pass, say my name until it does. Temur, she said at once, experimental, hard. The skin flinched. I smiled without stranger in it, or hoped so. She did not flick my ear. She squeezed my unhurt wrist once and went to the wounded with her rags. I spent the afternoon undoing Gallop Pattern where it tried to write me. Walked when I wanted to ride, spoke slow when my tongue wanted clipped command. Let Batu tell a loud, wrong version of the fight in which my mare did most of the thinking and a hole in the ground ate Kadan's luck. Wrong versions can be mercy. I added a shrug and a stone wherever people pressed. Still the pattern lived in small things. I caught a cup dropped from a widow's hand without looking. I knew a loose picket would fail before the rope finished slipping. I corrected Naran's heel while passing and only later realized the correction had been perfect enough to frighten him. "Sorry," I said. "Do it again," he said, pale, hungry for survival more than comfort. I did it again, uglier, honest, Temur slow. He preferred the ugly. Animals and boys often do. Near evening, the braid woman's retreat dust was gone, and a different quiet arrived. The quiet after a tooth leaves the skin, and the tongue keeps poking the hole. We buried our two under stones. I spoke no sky words. I said their names and what they had been doing when the day took them. Doing is better than praise. Praise is polish. Doing is contact. After stones, I took East Watch without asking. Second skin alert under the leash. First skin only a memory of walking finishes. Both hungers braided around the ordinary thump of a man who had paid the morning's promise and already felt the next bill forming in the far dust of roads. Gallop Pattern held. So did the name, for now. Morning after a running fight smells like iron, wet ash, and the sweet rot of decisions you cannot reverse. I walked the ground at first light with Kadan's seat still living under my skin and forced myself to go slow. Slow was the counterspell. Every time my hips wanted a horse, I gave them a squat beside a blood patch and read what the dirt said. Here a widow had fallen. Here a Mare-Teeth man had tried to crawl and been finished by someone whose hands shook. Here Batu's mallet had left a dent in a helmet and also in the story of who we were. Not only prey, not yet predators, something in between with tools. Oren joined me with his cut arm bound and his fox fur brushed as if dignity could bandage flesh. He did not speak at first. Old men know silence is a tool. When he did speak, he used the private voice, the one that does not perform for cousins. If Mare-Teeth return, he said, they return for you. If Empire hears, I said, it hears a thin camp grew teeth. Both problems are weather. We patch roofs anyway. He almost smiled. Then he pointed his chin at the tooth-string case on my shoulder. Hide that or own it. Half hiding makes you look like a thief who is also a liar. I am a thief, I said. I am trying not to be only that. He left me with that and went to argue grain. Grain arguments keep camps from becoming temples to one man's mourning. I took the tooth string off public view and coiled it inside my sleeping felt. Trophy as secret is still a trophy. The skin liked the teeth near my hand at night. I liked the laws more. Tension again. Living between tensions might be the whole craft. The hatchet woman sat unbound at the wrists now, ankles hobbled light, a compromise born of yesterday's knife in the dust test. She had worked the slip knot and then not run. That choice interested me more than her insults. She watched me read ground and snorted. "You wear him," she said, "not his coat, his leam." I kept walking. Denial too fast is confession. She laughed anyway. Kadan always said thin camps make the best stories when they bite once. Stories bring cousins. Cousins bring clan marks that are not leftover fox fur. You have been noticed by jaws. Next notice comes from men who collect jaws. Clan notices, empire notices. The chapter's unpaid bill rattled in her mouth like dice. I asked why she stayed. She showed empty hands. Where would I ride? Mare-Teeth retreat under a braid who hates me from an old horse debt. Your widows hate me cleanly. Clean hate is safer than family accounts. Also, I want to see if the stone dog becomes a wolf or a stuffed hide. Useful honesty. I gave her water duty under Sarnai's eye. Work is a hobble stronger than rope if pride takes it. She took it with a sneer that did not hide relief. Midday brought the South cousin boy again, the cracked lip barley runner, now with two older riders behind him, wearing marks I half knew from marriages and funerals Orun had named in long winter talks. Real clan edge people, not princes, not nothing. Eyes like men who smell changes in wind and ride toward them, because ignoring change is how pastures get stolen. They saw the scorch. They saw the mare-teeth bodies still unburned because fuel is food. They saw my face and the dun horse drinking among ours, and the way our boys stood a little taller and a little more afraid. Orun met them with soup and story. I stayed at the mare's neck and let public soft meat be served. Lucky ground, river help, captain fell in a clinch, spirits of ancestors, whatever source made barley move toward us instead of away. The older riders listened with faces that chewed without swallowing. One kept glancing at my hips as if hips could confess. When the boy unloaded barley, Naran appeared to help and whispered that the older one had asked who taught me to sit a horse like a free captain. Naran had said the mare taught me. Good boy. Lies with 4 legs are harder to prosecute. I took east watch early and felt the Gallop Pattern map the horizon into lanes. Empire Road somewhere beyond sight. Mare-Teeth dust gone into folds. New dust possible from clan cousins telling other cousins. Attention multiplies like flies on blood. Sarnai climbed the rise with 2 cups and made me drink both. Broth, salt, orders disguised as care. She sat beside me with her own pain held quiet. Orun will sell a version, she said. Those men will sell another. You need to know what you are buying with yesterday. Time, I said. Grain. Living names, a second skin I must learn to remove. Can you remove it, she asked. Not yet, I said. I can refuse it. Refusal is a kind of removal that tires you. She nodded as if I had described a fever. Fevers she understood. She left me with the cups empty and the watch still mine. Near evening, I drilled alone far enough from camp to sweat and close enough not to be a fool. Mount, gallop, loose, turn, stop. Without the skin, the forms were clumsy. With the skin, they were music. I practiced entering and leaving the music on purpose. 10 breaths in, 10 out, until sweat ran clean and Baholo learned I was not a passenger every time the drum began. Control is a muscle. Emergencies are poor gyms. I used ordinary dirt. Batu found me and asked if I was dancing for skywives. I told him I was learning not to fall off my own feet. He laughed and believed a comfortable shape of the truth. Comfortable shapes keep mallets ready for the next skull without theology. Night came, fires small, barley boiled. The clan edgemen slept inside our ropes as guests, which means spies with manners. I slept lightly with the second skin listening through my ears and the first laws nailed through my palms. Fight broken open had not ended when bows left. It had opened a wider ground where stories rode faster than horses, and the next enemy might arrive smiling with kinship or with clerks. I held the quiet like a rein and waited for which dust would show first. They did not leave in the morning. Guests who stay are weighing hooks. The older rider's name was Urka. Broad face, missing 2 fingers on the left hand, a laugh that never reached the weighing. The other was Togel, thinner, younger, married into Urka's line, eyes always on horse legs and women's grain measures, the practical spy. The cracked-lip boy belonged to both as messenger and excuse. Orun gave them tour of our nothing with the pride of a man showing scars. Here we held, here we lost her, here the river helped. Irke nodded at right times. Togel asked to see the place Kadan fell. I rode with them because refusing would paint a brighter target than agreeing. The second skin loved the dun under me and tried to make the ride a display. I sat uglier on purpose until we cleared camp eyes, then let the seat go honest, because lying with your whole body in front of horsemen is a fool's theatre. They would see anyway. At the bowl, I showed them blood darkened into dirt and the cut bank and the path of the run as tracks still held. I gave them soft meat, clinch, knife, luck, mare. Urk dismounted and touched a dark stain with 2 fingers like a priest who does not trust priests. You finished him on the ground, Urk said. Horse archers hate ground. How did you put a ground fighter's mind on a gallop captain? I did not, I said. I got dragged there by horses with better ideas than men. Togel smiled thin. Your camp boys say you came back riding like Kadan's shadow. Shadows are thin. What I saw under you this morning was not thin. The skin preened. I bit cheek. Blood tasted like a border. Stone dog stories grow legs, I said. Legs outrun truth. Truth is we are short on arrows and long on widows. If your clan wants a feast tale, invent cleaner heroes. If you want a buffer on this bend, send barley and 2 quiet spears, and do not write my name on anything a clerk can copy. Urk's real laugh arrived, short and surprised. You talk like a man who has been hunted by paper. Paper is an empire disease. Have you caught it already? I have caught dust, I said. Dust goes both ways. We rode a wider loop. Togel studied the Mare-Teeth retreat line and said the braid woman was likely Sarnai's opposite, a captain of leftovers from Kadan's ambition. She would nurse hate in a hollow somewhere and decide whether hate paid better as return raid or as story sold to larger jaws. I filed that. Larger jaws meant clan marks with real herds or empire officers who buy intelligence with copper and threats. On the return, Urke pulled beside me. Orun asked if our branch will mark your camp as under watch and share. That means winter help if you give news and horses when the line calls. It also means when the line calls, you come. Hooks inside grain. Always. I am rear dog of leftovers, I said. I do not sell men I cannot feed. You sell already, Urke said, not unkind. You sold Mare-Teeth a reason to say this river has a devil. Devils attract priests and princes. Better to have a clan brand on your devil than an empire cage. Think on it. Not today. Today we eat your barley and carry both kinds of story home. The soft one for fools, the hard one for men who assigned spears. That was the notice, not a ceremony. A weighing announced out loud. At Camp Sarnai intercepted Togel's glance toward the hatchet woman and moved the woman into tent shadow with a chore. Good. Some assets you do not let guests price. Naran hovered until I sent him to count arrow shafts with Batu. Boys should not learn to love being interesting too early. Interesting is a heat. Heat draws knives. Midday meal was boiled grain and dried fish and questions dressed as compliments. I answered with shrugs and one demonstration I regretted. Togel asked me to shoot a hanging rag from a moving horse. The skin took the shot before pride could refuse. The arrow cut the rag's thong and left cloth falling like a killed bird. Silence around the rope line went thick. Even Batu forgot a joke. I got down and said the dun steadies himself. The dun flicked an ear and called me a liar in horse. Irki watched my hands when I idle fidgeted after, looking for tremor of borrowed things. I gave him tremor from fatigue and injury instead, honest enough. When the guests finally packed, Orun walked them out with promises that were mostly air and one that was not. News of dust, either Empire or Tooth, would travel south within a day of seeing. Information rent, I approved. Information is cheaper than blood if you pay it early. Irke paused at my side last. If you are wearing dead men, he said very low, learn the taking off. I saw a shaman once who could not take off. He chewed his own fingers and called them enemy riders. Our line burned him. Burning is also a kind of help. Then he rode, missing fingers light on the rein, carrying both stories toward mouths that would multiply them. Clan eyes had looked, clan mouths would open. I stood until their dust became ordinary wind, and the second skin whispered that larger herds meant larger captains meant richer doors. I leashed it with the image of a shaman chewing fingers, and with Sanai's ear flick, and with Naran's rope word until the whisper sat down. Evening council of the willing was quieter than fear. Orun laid out watch and share as maybe. Widows asked if clan brand meant their daughters became someone else's math. Batu asked if clan feasts included meat. I said brands are ropes that pull both ways and that I would not kneel our names into any line without a winter of proof. Orun looked relieved to have my stubbornness as shield against his own hunger for belonging. Night watch, stars. The tooth string coiled in felt like a sleeping animal. Far south, stories rode faster than Irke's horses. Far east, empire clerks sharpened sticks. Between them, a thin camp tried to stay a place and not become a tale. I whispered laws until they were dull again. Dull laws hold when clan eyes blink and still see you. Names travel farther than men who are careful. Mine had already grown legs before I agreed to walk. Stone Dog, River Devil, Kadan's End, Lucky Seat, the soft versions and the hard versions left with Irke and Togel and would breed on the way. I could not chase them with a knife. You kill a man, you cannot kill a sentence once it has learned other mouths. I tried to bury my name under work. I repaired pickets. I restocked quivers with recovered shafts, straightening what could be straightened over steam, discarding what would betray a shot. I made Naran learn the difference by feel. He wanted the story of the clinch. I gave him the story of the mare's neck wound and how animals pay for our legends. He went quiet and became a better student of tendons. The second skin began to thin on the third day, not gone, less absolute, like a strong wine watered by ordinary hours. I could feel the difference when I mounted, still better than birth, no longer inevitable music. Relief and grief braided. Relief because Temur had more room. Grief because the hollow hates empty pegs in the wardrobe. I did not chase a new death to refill them. Laws held. Hunger complained. Complaints are not commands. Sanai watched the thinning without knowing my words for it. Your eyes are less wrong, she said. Keep going that direction. The hatchet woman earned a name in camp despite my wishes, Harker, which someone said meant hatchet in an aunt's tongue. Close enough to stick. She cut wood, carried water, mocked Batu, and did not cut throats in the night. On the fourth dawn, she told me Mare-Teeth would not return soon if the braid woman was smart. Smart captains sell stories to bigger powers before spending last riders on pride. Bigger powers pay in protection or in chains. Either way, your name is coin now, Stone Dog. I asked what she wanted for her warnings. She showed teeth. A horse when you have spare, and not to be handed to Irke's kindness. Clan kindness toward enemy women is often a marriage rope. I prefer your honest leash. Done, I said. Honest leashes are at least visible. Orun received a second messenger on the fifth day, not Irke's, a different branch mark, curious, smiling too much. He brought a gift of salt and a request to hear the river devil speak. I refused to perform. Orun performed for me with soft meat and sent the smiler away half satisfied. Afterward, Orun wiped sweat and said, attention is a season. Seasons pass if you do not feed them rain. Some seasons are empire, I said. Empire does not pass, it maps. He had no answer that was not prayer. He used prayer. I used a longer east watch. On the rise, I practiced the taking off Irke had named, in, out, 10 breaths, 10 breaths. When the skin clung, I bit the wrist mark and recited living names until it loosened. Once it did not loosen, and I felt Kadan's sneer toward Oren's fox fur rise so sharp my hand twitched toward a throw. I walked to the river and put my head under cold water until the sneer drowned, and I came up only Temur, gasping, ridiculous, alive. Control failure in private is tuition. Tuition hurts. I paid. Naran found me wet and did not ask. He sat nearby and said Temur 3 times like driving stakes. I nodded each one. The tax of liking ran both ways again. Expensive, necessary. If I ever stacked 5 legends and lost the boy rope, I would know the wardrobe had locked from inside. Toward the end of the week, the dun accepted ordinary grain from widows without looking for Kadan. Animals move on with a grace men call betrayal when they are the ones left behind. I stroked the dun and the dark mare both and let partnership be enough theatre. Then Togel returned alone, harder-faced, without salt smiles. Urki sent word, he said. Hard story reached a gathering. Some want you brought to stand under a proper banner. Some want you cut down before you become a magnet for Mare-Teeth cousins and empire questions. Urki holds the middle for now. Middle needs proof you are not a shaman chewing fingers. Middle also needs news. Empire screenwriters asked a herder south of the Tribute Road about a river camp that kills captains. The herder sold them confusion. Confusion lasts days, not seasons. There it was, clan split attention. Empire ear turning. Promise of the chapter paid in the running fight and the notice. Cliff built of pressure, not resolved. I thanked Togel with meat we barely had. He refused the meat and took water. On his way out, he looked at my seat on a motionless stool, as if even sitting might reveal Gallop ghosts. I sat like a sack. He almost smiled. Name that travels becomes property of listeners, he said. Steal it back each morning or wake up owned. After he left, I called the willing and laid facts without skins in them. Clan middle holding, clan edges hungry for control or murder, empire asking questions down the road. Options, move again deeper west and starve slower. Take watch and share and rent ourselves to Urki's line. Stay and become harder to eat while our name runs wild without us. Widows argued. Batu joked badly and then apologized. Oren wanted the brand the way cold men want coats. Sanai wanted time and fewer heroes. Harka laughed from the edge and said wolves argue while traps are already in the ground. I did not decide the season for them in one night. Deciding a people's whole road because my wardrobe opened twice is how private kings are born. I said we double scouts east for 10 days, cache grain, teach every able body the scatter paths, and send Oren's soft story south again to muddy the hard one. We revisit watch and share when Urki sends spears instead of only warnings. Oren disliked the lack of kneeling destiny. He accepted the work plan because work plans keep elders useful. Later I stood east with the thin second skin and the thinner first memory and the hollow asking for a third door already. I said no to the hollow and yes to the names and felt the no hold, shaking. My name was out there growing mouths. I remained here, a man with 2 borrowed mornings in his tendons and a camp that still mostly did not sing, and I treated the not singing like a victory worth another night's ugly watch. Empire does not always arrive as a column. Sometimes it arrives as a question that makes herders lie badly. On the 8th day, our East Scout, a cousin with good eyes and a bad habit of humming, came back pale without humming. He had seen 4 riders in dull lacquered scale cloth, not Mare-Teeth, not clan branch marks, moving along a line that mirrored the Tribute Road's logic, even when they left its dust. Screen riders, professionals. One carried a short banner pole with no cloth, only a metal tip shaped like a tidy flame. Officer's toy means someone with a desk wants a map improved. They asked no one in his sight. They read ground. They found old ash of a camp that was not ours. They found a dead fire ring that might have been Mare-Teeth. They took a long look toward river folds and marked something on a flat board with a stick. Then they rode parallel and away, unhurried. Unhurried is worse than charge. Charge is fear. Unhurried is schedule. I took the news without letting the second skin turn it into a hunt fantasy. Hunt fantasy would put me alone on their trail looking for a neat officer to wear. Laws, camp, timing. The officer would keep, the camp might not if I treated every worthy shadow as immediate food. Orun wanted to move that night. Panic is also a schedule, one enemies can predict. I argued for a false leave, pack noisy, ride west visible with spare mounts and dummies of felt on 2 horses, then double back along river to a third bend we had scouted and hated for its midges. Midges are better than maps. Maps hate messy water. We did it. Batu complained about midges already in theory. Harker called me almost clever. Sarnai packed the hip-smashed man, now less hip-smashed and more bitterly mobile, and told him if he screamed during the false leave, she would invent a worse injury. He believed her. Naran held the mute girl's hand and the scatter rule like twin ropes. From a distance, we looked like prey relocating. Up close, we were a hinge. When dusk ate the visible line, we folded into reed water and moved wet and miserable to the midge bend. There we made almost no smoke and tied horses low and slept in shifts with blades out. I lay with feet throbbing and skin thin as old tea and listened to the road the way you listen to a large animal beyond firelight. Pressure without face. Empire is a weather system with clerks, I had told myself on an earlier ride. Weather systems do not hate you personally until a clerk writes your name in a clean hand. My name was becoming writable. At false dawn, I crawled a rise on my belly like a thief and watched empty grass that still felt watched. No lacquered fore. No tooth string glitter, only a far dust that could have been carts on schedule. The hollow leaned. I pushed it down with the image of Naran saying Temur into my nightmares, and with Urki's burned shaman, and with the widow under stones who had taken a shaft for a child. Nails enough to hold one more morning. Midday midge hell made saints of no one. People slapped faces and cursed my cleverness. I accepted curses as rent. Toward evening, Togel found us anyway, which meant either he was excellent or our hinge had left a mark, or both. He sat his horse at our rope and looked offended by midges as if they were a personal slight. "You are not where hard stories said," he said. "Good." Empire Screen asked Urks's southern cousins about a devil on a dark mare. Cousins sold them 3 directions and a tale about a vengeful widow spirit. Clerks like spirits less than men. Spirits do not tax well. You have a few days of mud in their ink. Use them. Use how? Orun asked, scratching welts. Decide if you are clan buffer or unmarked meat before someone else decides, Togel said. Urk can still hold middle if you give him a public gesture. Public gesture means you stand under a branch mark at a small gathering and swear not to raid clan herds. Easy swear for leftovers who raid nothing. Symbol feeds middle. Symbol starves the kill him edge for a while. Symbols are hooks, I said. Everything is hooks, Togel said. Choose the hook you can see. He left before full dark, refusing tea, already dust. Council in Midge-Dark was ugly and honest. Widows did not want brands. Orun wanted coats. Batu wanted to know if gatherings had wrestling. Sarnai wanted my eyes to stay mine through any oath. Harker said oaths are spit with witnesses, and that spit dries. I agreed to the small gathering if it stayed small, and if no one tried to put a title on me that children would chant. Orun nearly wept with relief. I felt the leash of the world tighten one more notch and told myself, notches are not nooses until you stop checking the difference. That night, the second skin flared without a fight in front of it, pure trauma bleed. Kadan's urge to ride east and shoot a lacquered scout in the throat for the insult of boards and sticks. My body sat up half-drawn toward the dun. Naran, on near watch, said Temur hard, scared. The word hit. I lay back shaking, apologized in a voice that was mine, and put the boy's hand against my wrist pulse until both of us believed the rhythm. Tuition again. Cost of doors. Before sleep took me, I walked the midge ropes once and looked east toward the patient insult of Empire roads. Pressure from the road was no longer theory. It had riders, it had boards, it had ink that wanted my shape. Promise of Mare-Teeth was paid. Captain borrowed. Running fight won. Clan notice taken. Unpaid, the season of attention. The gathering hook. The clerk's clean hand. The hollow's demand for a third skin. The braid woman's hate stored somewhere like dry meat. I did not try to pay it all in one night. Cheats resolve everything before the fire dies. I kept the cliff sharp and the work dull, and the name Temur stuck to a living chest by boy rope and woman flick and elder need, and the cold bite of my own teeth on my own skin. Midges sang, horses stamped, far road rolled under stars without caring who wore whom. I watched until my watch ended and did not smile. Before true sleep on the night after Togel's hook, I lay with palm on knife and felt the second skin thinning toward memory, the first skin already memory, the hollow patient as a snake in cooling dust. Emptying is not peace. Emptying is a pause between hungers. I named it honestly so it would not name me first. Around me the Midge-Bend camp breathed. Oren's snore, Sarnai's careful turn on a sore hip, Naran's mutter of scatter paths in a dream, Harker's deliberate wakefulness, the hip-smashed man's new habit of counting under his breath as if numbers could nail him to life. Ordinary. Ordinary is the home skin's rent. I pressed my free hand into dirt until grit bit skin and reminded me I was still a tenant, not a shrine. East held empire schedule and lacquered questions, and clerks who hated spirits because spirits do not pay. South held Urk's middle and the kill him edge, and a small gathering where my spit would become symbol. North held whatever Mare-Teeth cousins the braid woman could wake with Kadan's name. West held emptier grass and free starvation pretending to be purity. The horizon was not a line. It was teeth all the way around, smiling without lips. I intended to break those teeth wearing every legend foolish enough to face me, and I intended to do it without selling the mute girl's dragonfly treaty, or the widow's stones, or the boy's right to mock me when my face went wrong. If those intentions broke each other, I would choose names over hollow and pay the ache. I had said versions of that before. Saying again is not weakness. Saying again is how oaths stay heavier than moods. The Gallop Pattern flickered through my ankles when a horse stamped. I let it flicker and fade without mounting it. Practice in the dark, taking off, leaving room. Urk's burned shaman sat behind my eyes as warning torch. I did not look away. Warnings that flatter you are useless. Warnings that scare you might be teachers. I rose once and checked pickets because sleep had become a thin treaty. Midges found my eyelids. I blessed them as camouflage and cursed them as truth. The dark mare blew at my pocket for grain. I gave her a palm instead and promised morning. She accepted credit with poor grace. Fair. On the rise, the stars were hard salt again. I spoke toward the east, not loud. I will come to your road when my house is not a map pin. I will take what tries to take me. I will stand under a branch mark long enough to starve a murder vote and not long enough to become furniture. If a third skin opens, I will nail it with the same laws. If the laws fail, I will put my wrist in Naran's hand and let a boy drag me back to a name. The night did not bless me. Good. Blessings are cheap. I wanted weight. Weight came as wind smelling of far dung fires and water and dust that might have been carts. Somewhere a lacquered officer oiled a spear and believed schedules were the bones of the world. Somewhere Ike argued middle against men who preferred simple corpses. Somewhere the braid woman strung a bow and fit my face into the aim. Somewhere a future pattern waited that would bite my own people through my hands if I got careless. A lesson with a chapter number I could already feel like weather under the door. Not tonight. Tonight was paid fight, open notice, sharp cliff. I turned back toward thin quiet and the ugly comfort of midges. On the way down the rise, I passed the bone chime Naran had reset on the alarm rope and touched it once, soft, not enough to sing. Tools of the living. Better than banners of teeth. Batu relieved me with welts on his face and a joke about marrying a swamp. I told him to watch the east seam and the south rope both. Specific fears, sharp edges. He straightened. Pride aimed correctly is a tool. Sanai was awake anyway, because pain and duty keep similar hours. She handed me a cup without asking if I wanted it. Salt broth, orders disguised as care. Your face is plain, she said. Keep it that way when guests come. I nodded. Plain is a shield. Outrageous stays inside where it cannot start funerals. I lay down in smoke almost nothing, and horse smell and river rot and iron that never fully leaves. The dark mare stamped once and settled. The dun, still half foreign, answered softer. Partnership and theft sharing a picket line. Fitting. Sleep came as truce. In the truce I saw Kadan's mouth scar try to smile on my own face and tore it off with a bite to the wrist that woke me enough to taste blood and know it mine. Calendar, border, proof. Naran murmured Temur from his blanket without waking fully, rope thrown in sleep. I answered under breath. Tax paid both directions. If a morning ever came when I could not feel my own blood as mine, I would know the wardrobe had closed from the inside. Tonight the door still opened both ways. When true morning came, we would scratch welts, argue gathering, count barley, lie usefully about stones and widows' spirits, and keep scouts on the road's breath. When the next worthy death arrived, I would decide again. Deciding again is the only everlasting oath that does not turn into a skin of its own. I did not smile where even Harker could see. Smiles start rumors, rumors start hunters, hunters start funerals. My name had traveled enough without my teeth showing for free. I kept my face plain and my future outrageous and my leashes visible. Second skin taken from a horse archer captain, running fight won on ground that tried to own me. Clan eyes open, empire ink wet, horizon still teeth. I thought, not claiming, of roads still unlived, a pattern that might bite my own people through my hands if I got careless. Tribute columns, nights when one skin would not be enough, a war leader with an iron reign who might deserve refusal as much as taking. I did not own those stories yet. Claiming future blood is how boys die in their sleep. I only admitted the road was no longer a circle around one river bend. The hollow liked the admission. I leashed it with names again until it lay down, not tamed, only waiting. I slept as Temur, expensive to myself, necessary to a knot of living names, and let the grass remember hooves at rest for one more night before it remembered them leaving toward whatever jaw opened first. Promise paid. Cliff sharp, season unbroken, waiting, patient as clerks and hungry as hollows, and still, for these breaths held in two hands that knew both bowstring and boy's rope, and the dull laws that keep a wardrobe from becoming a coffin. I breathed out, I stayed.